Hi, welcome to another edition of Lost in Space with Montana Kennedy. And this time I am truly lost in space. This is chapter 2 of my Tales of the Sunfish. And as we're going along through here, uh, if you haven't seen the first episode of Tales of the Sunfish, go ahead and watch that when you get a chance. When you are going through here, what you're seeing right now is I did the mission with is called the asteroids mission, and so you end up with just yourself and the rescue ship out near an asteroid field, and you have to make do from there. My mistake, and you'll see this in episode 1, is I got greedy, decided to go after a ship to salvage one of the many civilian ships out there, and I ended up getting farther and farther away from my home asteroids, which meant that I had no idea where I was. You see, once you get past about 8,000 meters away from the asteroid that you start out with, you've got no idea. So anyway, I get out there. I realize from now on I'm stuck. I'm going to have to salvage everything I need from all around this whole different area, and I'm going to have to figure out exactly what I'm going to have to do. And I won't have an asteroid from which I can mine plutonium or nickel or cobalt or just whatever I need, and especially like silicon. Oh, silicon is an important thing if you need to do the solar panels. So what I realize is I'm going to have to start building up everything from scratch based off of what I can salvage off of everything else. And that's kind of interesting in its own light. And so what I've done here is if you're familiar with the rescue ship, I've gone through and I've started building on some different areas to it, like essentially little side pods, and you'll see a good shot of what the side pods fully look like here in a bit. But my plan right now is, and it's still my plan, some situations have changed, but that's still my plan. I'm going to turn that into like a little loading bay for a small ship. And then I've got my other side, I've got two large cargo containers, and what I refer to as the cone of doom, the cone of shame, sitting up above there. That helps me dump any materials I have so I don't have to go inside my ship and access a port. I don't have to sit there and fiddle around trying to get to where the port is. I can just sit there. I've got a small gravity well, as you can see, zero point 0.5 G's pointing down towards the lower part of the ship. And I can just go up over there, drop off everything I want to over the cone. It goes through the collector, into the conveyors, and then into my inventory system. So what I'm doing right now is I've already kind of built on some of this stuff, and this is right after the ship grinders came out. I decided I'm going to mess around with those, and I've been able to snag some of the parts off of the ship that I'm with. It's a military mine layer. I'm going through. I'm going to grab the some of the materials I need out of there, and I'm going to end up building my grinders. And so I figure, instead of just me doing this, I can get a set of grinders. I'll have a little strip of those feeding into the rest of my inventory, and this ought to be pretty good, and it'll help me get what I need. I can get it done, and so I can just hopefully speed up the process, because if I'm going to be stuck out here doing this, I want to do this faster. Uh, and I'll talk to you about some of the lessons I learned as I go through here. In the long run, I think this might be a good thing to do. I've got some different things that I'm setting up currently that if you watch me on my Twitch stream, you'll be able to see me playing around with this, and you'll see where I currently am with the Sunfish. With the situation that I'm in right now, having to get parts and pieces for this, making motors, making computers, those are going to be two of the harder parts of a lot of things you do. Anything that's going to need other materials, gold, platinum, silicon, usually you're going to either need to deconstruct something from one of the ships. And remember, you have an assembler, it also is a disassembler. You can take stuff apart. And if you need the raw materials, you can get those that way. Anything that's just made out of iron, you just need to tear down steel plates. And so if you get a nice big haul like a military ship or some of the other ships that are out there, you can go through and just tear them up, and you can turn them into steel tubes, you can turn them into plates, you can turn them into interior panels. What I'm trying to go through right now is you get into some of the different pieces like the reactors. You can tear them apart. You get computers, you get motors, you get other materials. Uh, and as you can see, I'm gone up to a ref 4 times to help keep you from having to go through the insanity of watching me. And here I am dropping materials into my cone of shame. You don't have to sit and watch me go slow mo through everything. Uh, some of the stuff I like to tear up, though, there's lots of different things: the miniguns, the rocket pods, the that's a piece like once you cut up certain pieces, it lets go of the ship, and then it might end up flying away on you. Certain pieces I like to go through tear up the cargo units in a lot of ships. They have a lot of the pieces that you might need to do your job in order to continue making things. And so, I mean, it's just good stuff in case you're stuck doing something where you're doing nothing but salvaging. There's lots of stuff you can do. You're going to want to take stuff apart just to get those pieces. You don't even need to take them all the way down. If you're not interested in steel plate, you don't have to take all of that stuff all apart. But here I am. I've got that piece finished up. I've got other pieces I'm getting done. Uh, but you're going to see here in a couple of minutes what happens when you actually start to go through and work the grinders. But yeah, at this point, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm just completely hosed. I'm so far away from anything that I'm just going to go through. And I was almost thinking of just completely rebuilding the mine layer and getting rid of the sunfish, but I kind of like the sunfish by now, and I really don't want to deal with something as big as what that military mine layer is. It's just too big a ship. I didn't really feel the need for it. Unlike some folks out there, I'm not a big capital ship fan. Uh, I understand they've got their place, and especially if this game ends up going multiplayer, but I think there's a lot of people who are really investing themselves in the idea of this thing turning into some big ship versus ship combat, and it's just kind of concerning to me sometimes. Myself, I'm seeing this more as resource gathering. I'm still looking at it a little bit more than Minecraft in space, but I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun when this thing gets big. My big concern is once you get to big multiplayer areas, that there's going to be a whole lot of griefing involved, and you'll get people going through tearing up stuff and just blowing things up because they can. And so it's I don't know. There's got to be some changes that'll be made and some restrictions put in place. But for right now, I'm really happy with how the game is set up. And here we go, finishing up my last grinders. Oh, most of the way done. I just have to get those motors. So where am I going to go grab the motors? Oh, I've gone over. I've got the motors all set up, and I've got my grinders finished up. And I went ahead and I grabbed those motors though out of one of the storage cases. So here I am going in and checking out my grinders. And I'm going to come along the side of the ship, and I'll be walking you through a couple of the lessons that I picked out while I was going through there. And then again, when in doubt, if you can, always try and make sure that your solar panels are pointed towards the sun. I've seen footage people have complaining about their solar panels, and their solar panels are pointed nowhere near the sun. So there we go, grinding away. Military mine layers and just military ships in general are great just to get hold of steel plate, if nothing else. You can sit there and just build up a large base someplace. And really, that's one of those things in the back of my head I probably should have done out here is just set up a single base just someplace out in the middle of nowhere. That would have been a neat place to start from. Just, I don't know if you want to call it, just like if you want to start role playing your game, DS9 or something, I don't know. But for what I'm doing right here, some of the things you're going to find out is you'll notice that military mine layer is not currently powered. I have it shut down. I've gotten all the innards torn out of it. I don't believe it even has a working. I think I took all of the uh, reactors out of it, so it doesn't even have any working reactors. And as you saw just there on the inventory, I'm getting the steel plate in to my inventory, but that's all that's going on. It's not going from the steel plate into any of my cargo containers. The reason for that is because this is before we found out that the grinders, you have to have them turned on in your console controls. They have to be turned on there, and then they will start feeding into your inventory. If you are using grinders with just your mouse button as like part of the weapon bar, like what I've got set up here, they don't feed anywhere. They'll just sit there and grind until they're full, and then they start spitting stuff out. And something you probably have noticed by now, that's not me changing my orientation, that's the mine layer changing its orientation. I was starting to talk about how I have the all the powers off on the mine layer. It's got engines but no juice. So what's happening is, since it doesn't have any way to stabilize itself, as much as I push on it with my big ship up against that big ship, it is starting to slowly turn it and move it. And so, yeah, I can sit there and stay in place, and it'll start pushing off. And it starts to get worse and worse. You can see it doing a little bit of a slow pivot and a push away from me. And so, as you start to go with that, I started playing around with some different angles, and eventually I just went ahead and just landed back on top of it just to capture it. And I've got my array set up there. And you can see I've got 16 days just me sitting there doing nothing. 16 days worth of fuel, and a big part of that is just having my solar array pointed at the sun. So what I decided to do is, I've got the last couple of pieces I'm going to pull off of this thing, and then I'm just going to let it go drifting. Be interesting to run into it someday. Partially because I see other ships that keep showing up on the distance, and you see that's at 140,000 meters. So I'm 140 kilometers away from essentially what the shipping lanes are. And what I've started to realize is, if that's where they are, that's probably where I need to be. Because typically when ships show up, they're going to show up within a particular range of where the asteroids are. And so I need to go back and try to find those ships, and I figure that that's probably going to be a good way to find the asteroids. But that's for another episode. As is right now, I'm just tearing off some more things off of the mine layer, and I'm going to go from there and see what I can find out. Grab a couple of pieces of engine parts, grab a couple pieces of just different things, and that'll be for the next episode. Thanks again for watching. If you like this, go ahead and click to subscribe. Otherwise, I hope to see you on Twitch or here else on YouTube. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.